Here, so the book I will be reviewing today is Will by Will Smith. Just so you know, it has like a free audiobook version available on YouTube in case you want to listen it and you're too cheap to buy the official book. But anyhow, the things we will discuss today. He talked about a 1 month head start philosophy. There was a part where he focuses on his dad taught him a lesson, just focus on one brick at a time. When he made a bloody wall in his dad's shop when they were young. No analysis through paralysis shit. The audition for the Fresh Prince. Letting the smart people think. He let Steven Spielberg make the decision later if whether he should be in Men in Black or not. If you kill one part of yourself, it affects everything. Getting divorced on Valentine's Day. Going back to your exes. He went on a trip with his ex's new boyfriend to get a change of pace. Seemed very interesting. And underage contract that didn't apply. But anyways, so let's start with the first thing he talked about in the book. So when Will was young, he there was probably some damage done into one of the walls in his father's shop. So the dad, instead of getting a carpenter, asked him and his brother at that time to finish up the wall themselves. And it took them a whole bloody year to complete it. And he talks about how if an adult was there, they could have done it in 1 or 2 days, but it took us a whole year. So Will's dad was very disciplined, very smart, also had some abusive sides to him. So sort of like a bittersweet relationship. Um, yeah. So a lesson he gave to Will when one day they were not feeling like making the wall anymore is that he said, focus on one brick at a time. Don't focus on the whole wall. Focus on laying one brick at a time, and the wall will finish on its own. And that does remind you of that one thing philosophy. We get overwhelmed when we focus too much on the long term plan and getting everything done. But if you focus on a little thing to start off with, like instead of focusing on doing the entire marathon, if you just set your goal to tying your shoelaces, wearing your sneakers, and then stepping out the door, eventually you'll be done with walking the 4 or 5 kilometers or whatever. 40, I know that. I'm just talking about steps. Next thing, this was, I don't know if it qualifies as a lesson or not, but it was very interesting in terms of business. So, from Philadelphia, when he was young, a guy signed him up. I've read the book, I just forgot the names and everything. Not that photographic memory sort of person. But they had signed a contract, and he wasn't exactly the best, let's just say, guy to manage them. Wasn't promoting them as much, wasn't aligning with the vision, wasn't making them as successful. But they were theoretically supposed to be under a contract. Anyways, later on, he wanted to update and work with a different agency that was a lot more successful at the time. And Will, they were like, you have already signed a contract, so you can't move on to the next agency. But when they were looking into the documents, they figured out that when he signed the contract, Will signed the contract to be under that idiot's management, he was 17 years old. So under the Philadelphia's law, the contract was null and void. So literally all the profits he was getting and everything and the commission and the structure disappeared overnight. Loopholes in the legal system can be fascinating sometimes. So life can surprise you. Yeah. Anyways, let's move on to the third thing. Then later on there came a phase where the work ethic was very inspiring as well. He used to say he would write notebooks, fill like registers with rhymes when he was trying to become a rapper. But eventually that career was over. He didn't do so well in it. So he decided to move on to Los Angeles, borrowed money from a drug dealer to start a new life. And there he was just invited somehow to this producer who was trying to make the Fresh Prince. The original idea was like, I think, Hollywood Hills, but Bel Air was more preferable. Anyways, so it was his birthday party. This was a very interesting story and take on life. He wanted him to audition at that spot. They just talked to each other and he was like, alright, let's hold auditions right now. You do the auditions at the spot. And Will was scared. He didn't want to do the auditions at that point. So he went and so he took Will with him inside to the library, where I think he saw Michael Jackson and Oprah. But anyhow, aside from that, so he was talking to the guy who was planning on making the show. I'm not ready yet. So the producer goes on to tell him, I'm messing the names up probably, but anyhow, that all the people who are going to decide to make this show are present right now out there. So you can either do the audition right now, or you can wait and the audition will likely never happen because, well, he was like, that guy next week. So he asked Will, how much time do you need? Will was like, I need 1 more week. And then he goes like 1 week later, he specified a person who was integral to saying yes to the overall process. He wouldn't be available. He would be busy with something else. He was like, all right, let's do 2 weeks then. That's what Will said. He was like, the second week, another issue will come up. And he was like, then let's do 3 weeks. So he goes on, Will, you're not getting the point. If you say yes to this opportunity right now, it will likely change your life. And it did. There will be times in your life when you have to make decisions whether or not you're prepared for them. This was one of those moments, and in those times, maybe saying yes is probably the good thing to do, even if you fail. But Will didn't fail. He did the audition, was successful. They literally figured everything out at the spot. He didn't have a lawyer, so he just picked a lawyer from the birthday randomly, and I was like, draft his own legal papers. And that's it. So he goes on to become the Fresh Prince and goes on to start his acting career that sort of changed his life forever. Wonder how things would have been differently if at that moment he had hesitated and refused to go onto the stage. He did hesitate, but there were people around him that sort of ensured that he stuck with it. And that is also something that I found admirable. People, your environment surrounding does play a role. Because there were certainly people in his life who would have discouraged him. You auditioning without any practice. Come on. All you know is how to rap. How can you pull this off? No acting experience prior to this. But look at him today, one of the best actors. Aside from the Oscar controversy, he still won the Oscar though. Imagine where it all started. But let's move on to the next takeaway from this book. This was actually a pretty funny one. I'll just read the exact extract. So he was the first person who had to pay his own bloody child support. Anyways, his parents were getting divorced. His mother had had enough. And when they were signing the divorce papers, Daddy-o, he used to call his dad Daddy-o, and Mom, Mom, or Mom, I don't know how they pronounce that. But still, he owed his mom closer to 140 grand in child support. Right? And the mother wanted every single penny of it. She didn't care about the dad or whatever. She had just had enough. She was like, either he pays me, which if his dad failed to do so, he would go in jail. Under Pennsylvania law. And Will didn't want that. So what he did, Will Smith, was that in some Ponzi style backdoor deal, I transferred 140 grand into Daddy-o's account. He immediately cut a check to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for the full amount, and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania made mom whole on back child support. Yeah, just so you know, something in advance, he was also paying his mother to pay his child support before that. Seriously? Anyways, this was the most funny thing from the book that I read. I'm not laughing right now, but I was when I read it the first time. Uh, and when his mother found out that he had given his Will had paid his dad the 140 grand that later was gone to the mom, the child support, she paid Will back his own money, his own child support. So she became the first woman in history of Pennsylvania. Was it Pennsylvania? Oh, I mixed Pennsylvania and Philadelphia. Anyways, to give back his own child the child support he paid to them to pay his own child support. Amazing, right? Life can be so surprising at times. Imagine how easy you have. Uh, Anyways, aside from that, let's move on to the next interesting point. So, Steven Spielberg wanted to work with Will Smith's own Men in Black. Will wasn't up for it because obviously he had made Independence Day before and he didn't want it to be the sci fi guy who stars in all these alien movies. He didn't want it to be the alien guy. So he was discussing with Steven. Oh yeah, that was funny story as well. Steven called him and asked him, "Where are you right now?" And he mentioned wherever he was. All right, let's meet up today. And like he goes like, "What's up with this Hollywood no analysis through paralysis, taking decision and action right at the spot bullshit?" But it was funny. It was also admirable that got a lot of things done. Still, so he goes on to meet Steven Spielberg and explains to him why he doesn't want to star in Men in Black. And then Steven just casually says, "Alright, uh, don't make the decision yourself. Let me make the decision for you." Just casually, he didn't really actually meant anything by it. But Will, on the other hand, he goes, thinks about it for a second, and he's like, "Who's the smarter person right now here?" Spielberg has more directing experience, has made better movies, knows a lot about filmmaking and everything. I can make the decision, but it won't be as good. So why don't I just let him make the decision for me? Because obviously he's more smarter. And I got kind of learned from that. Yeah, in life at times, let smart people make decisions for you if you can't decide what to do yourself because your knowledge or experience or exposure is limited. Just let someone who is smart make the choice, and he did say yes to Men in Black, and that became one of the more amazing franchises later on. And he also got divorced on Valentine's Day. On of all the bloody days, getting divorced on Valentine's Day. Amazing, right? But yeah, that these were like some of the interesting takeaways. There is more. It's a very long book, and there are a lot of things that you might have found in book summaries or whatever. But these were just the things that I found like really admirable and is interesting, filled with that life. The last chapter was amazing when he jumps off, does the bungee jumping, and he talks about fear, which I highly recommend you read. Uh, Not a 50-year-old midlife crisis, but something completely different. Steering fear back and taking the risk. But yeah, regardless of whatever you think about him, he is a good man and has done things and changed lives and impacted people. Yeah, so I'm hoping you would give the book a shot. But that's it for today.